Chapter 1, The Dog Who Chose a Family. Silverton, Oregon, Spring 1922. The Brazier farmhouse sat nestled in the rolling green hills of Oregon's Willamette Valley, its whitewashed porch bathed in golden afternoon light. Inside, young Nova Brazier knelt beside a wicker basket, her breath held in anticipation. A tiny, whimpering bundle of tan and white fur squirmed against its mother, a weary farm collie who regarded the 12-year-old girl with tired but trusting eyes. "Can we keep him, Papa?" Nova whispered, her fingers gently brushing the smallest pup of the litter, a scrappy little thing with one ear that flopped endearingly forward. Frank Brazier, a broad-shouldered man with sun-weathered skin, exchanged a glance with his wife, Elizabeth. They had not planned on adding another dog to their homestead, but the way Nova's eyes shone with hope was impossible to resist. Elizabeth smiled. "He's the runt, but he's got spirit. Look at those eyes, sharp as a hawk's." The pup, as if sensing his fate being decided, wobbled to his feet and licked Nova's fingers. A bond was sealed in that instant. They named him Bobbie. A dog's place in the world. From the beginning, Bobbie was different from other dogs. He did not merely obey commands, he anticipated them. When Frank rose before dawn to tend the fields, Bobbie was already waiting by the door, tail thumping. When Nova walked to school, he trotted beside her like a sentinel, turning back only when she shooed him home. And when little Leona had nightmares, he would press his warm body against her until her breathing steadied. The Braziers often marveled at his intelligence. He herded stray chickens without being taught, barked warnings at snakes before anyone saw them, and once even nudged Elizabeth away from a patch of ice she hadn't noticed. "He's not just a dog," Frank often mused. "He's family." But in the summer of 1923, fate would test that bond in ways none of them could imagine. Chapter 2, The Journey East. August 1923, The Open Road. The overland red bird touring car rumbled along dirt roads, its polished crimson exterior gleaming under the summer sun. Inside, Nova and Leona giggled as the wind whipped their hair, while Elizabeth clutched her hat with one hand and a picnic basket with the other. Bobbie sat between the girls, his nose twitching at the unfamiliar scents rushing past. Frank had decided on a grand adventure, a cross-country trip to visit his brother's family in Walcott, Indiana. It was an ambitious journey for the time, but the Braziers were determined. And Bobbie, of course, would not be left behind. A world beyond Silverton. For Bobbie, the trip was a sensory wonder. He pressed his muzzle against the car window as they passed through towering forests, endless plains, and bustling towns where strangers stared at the sight of a dog riding like a passenger. At night, when they stopped at roadside inns or camped under the stars, he curled up beside the girls, his presence a comfort in unfamiliar places. But as they neared Indiana, the landscape changed. The air grew thick with humidity, and the roads became rougher. Bobbie, ever alert, stiffened at the scent of unfamiliar animals, raccoons, possums, and most troublingly, other dogs. The day everything changed. Walcott was a quiet farming town, smaller than Silverton but just as warm in its welcome. Frank's brother, Henry, had a sprawling property where Bobbie was free to roam, but the local dogs did not take kindly to the newcomer. It happened at the gas station. Bobbie had hopped out to stretch his legs when a snarling pack of farm mutts descended upon him. Barking, snapping, they drove him away from the station, away from the Braziers' frantic calls. By the time Frank and the girls gave chase, Bobbie was gone. For 3 days, they searched. They walked the countryside, calling his name. They put up posters in town. They offered rewards. But as their scheduled departure loomed, they faced a devastating truth: Bobbie was lost. With heavy hearts, they began the long drive back to Oregon, the car achingly silent without him. Chapter 3, The Impossible Trek begins. Indiana, late August 1923. Bobbie was alone in a world of unfamiliar scents and sounds. The Braziers' car had vanished in a cloud of dust, leaving him stranded in a land of strangers. But deep in his heart, a single instinct burned brighter than fear: go home. The first steps. He turned his nose west and began to walk. At first, he followed the scent of the road, the faint traces of oil and rubber that lingered where cars had passed. But as days turned to weeks, his path became one of sheer determination. He crossed fields where cornstalks towered over him like sentinels. He waded through creeks, the cold water biting at his paws. He slept in ditches, his ears twitching at the howls of distant coyotes. Survival. Food was scarce. He learned to scavenge, stealing scraps from back porches, digging for rodents, even accepting handouts from kind strangers. In a small Illinois town, a widow named Mrs. Haggerty took pity on the thin, travel-worn collie and left out a bowl of stew. Bobbie ate gratefully but refused to stay, slipping away before dawn. "Why, he's got a look in his eye," she told her neighbor. "Like he's got somewhere important to be." And he did. Chapter 4, Trials of the Wilderness. The Rocky Mountains, winter 1923. By the time Bobbie reached Colorado, winter had set in. The plains gave way to towering peaks, their snow-capped summits gleaming under an unforgiving sky. The frozen pass. The mountains were a gauntlet of ice and wind. Bobbie's paws, already cracked from months of travel, bled as he trudged through the snow. His breath came in ragged puffs of steam, his body trembling with exhaustion. One night, as a blizzard raged, he took shelter under a fallen log. The cold seeped into his bones, and for the first time, a terrible thought flickered in his mind: what if I don't make it? But then he remembered Nova's laughter, Leona's small hand stroking his fur, Frank's deep voice calling him "good boy." He could not give up. The kindness of strangers. Not all humans were cruel. In Wyoming, a railroad worker named Joe spotted the emaciated dog limping along the tracks. He whistled, and Bobbie, though wary, approached. "You're a long way from anywhere, ain't ya?" Joe murmured, offering a strip of dried beef. Bobbie ate, then pressed his head against the man's rough hand in gratitude before continuing west. Chapter 5, The Final Stretch. Oregon, February 1924. 6 months. 6 months of walking, of hunger, of near misses with wolves and speeding cars. 6 months of unwavering determination. And then, home. The miracle. Nova Brazier was washing dishes when she heard it, a faint, familiar scratch at the door. Her heart stopped. She flung it open, and there he was. Bobbie. But not the vibrant, strong dog they had lost. This Bobbie was a shadow of himself, his ribs visible beneath matted fur, his paws raw and bleeding. Yet his eyes, those same knowing, loving eyes, lit up at the sight of her. A sob tore from Nova's throat. "Bobbie?" He staggered forward, collapsing at her feet with a whimper. The family erupted, Frank lifting him gently, Elizabeth weeping as she warmed broth, Leona burying her face in his fur. Bobbie was home. Chapter 6, The Legend Lives On. Silverton, 1927 and beyond. Bobbie's story spread like wildfire. Newspapers called him the Wonder Dog. Ripley's featured him in Believe It or Not. Hollywood made a film. But to the Braziers, he was simply their Bobbie, their miracle. He lived out his days in peace, his legend growing even as his body slowed. When he passed in 1927, the town mourned. The Oregon Humane Society buried him with honors, his grave marked. Bobbie the Wonder Dog, loyal unto death. Today, murals and statues keep his memory alive. But his true legacy is not in fame, it is in the unshakable truth that love, against all odds, can find its way home. And Bobbie proved it.